And welcome to try number 7 of making you a week 12 video. Yes, my wife's been washing dishes and yelling at me while I'm trying to make this work. So, happy days. Alright, here we go. Week 12, and this may be the home page for a few weeks here. Really, the rest of the work that you're going to have for the semester is pretty much sitting here. You're going to continue to work on your modeling homework. Sections 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 are due April 15th. Sections 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6 are due April 22nd, with the modeling exam due on April 26th. There's a thing called the modeling mini project, which came about basically because I did not like the modeling part of the big project, which I've been using for a couple semesters, and I'm trying out a replacement, but I'm going to try it out as a group assignment instead of as part of your main project. And then the final project instructions are complete. That is due May the 11th. And you'll see a thing called Final Project Turn-In is now available. We'll take a look at that in a minute too. So let's start by looking at the modeling mini project. For this assignment, this is one of those where you're in a group. I put you in new groups, actually. Some of you have had good groups and some of you have not. So you're only in 3 groups, so hopefully there's enough of you in each one. But this is one of those where you don't see anything until you post, and then you can see everybody else's, and you're encouraged to compare and correct each other's work during the week. So there's a link here that has Disney ticket prices, and what I want you to do is just take the first price available for each year. So yeah, in 2004 there's 2 prices, but just take the first price available for each year from 2000 until 2018, and then also take the highest number available for each one. So in 2015 that's $105, 2016 $124, and so on. Okay. What you're going to do with those is use your calculator or other technology. There are other things you could do this with. To fit a linear, quadratic, and exponential model to the data, find the R-squared value, use that to decide which model fits the best, then use your models to predict the ticket price in 2019 and 2030. Based on your predictions, which model seems like the most reasonable? So answer those questions. This has a due date of April 22nd, so you have quite a while to work on this. One thing to remember is when you're making your ordered pairs, use 2000 as a 0, and then 2018 would be an 18, 2030 would be a 30, so don't actually use the number 2000, but start with 0 instead. Okay, I'm actually going to make a little edit to this while we're... Okay. So then the next thing that we need to talk about is this final project turn-in. So actually I have updated the project instructions, and basically what I've done with that is I have added on the stuff that's in this final project turn-in. This is where your project will go when you're done, and again you are in solo groups for this. So there's a link to the project. My dog's going crazy. There's a link to the project and the grading here. So, so far you have done 3 parts of the project: statistics, finance, and graph theory. Those are the 3 parts that we've worked on. Each one of those parts is scored on the following rubric. Basically, if you didn't complete a part, or you did it very incorrectly despite getting feedback, that's nothing. You did a little bit correctly, but there's serious errors or omissions in a majority of the work. That would be 1 point. Formatting is not clear. Most of the work is correct, but there are some serious errors and omissions, would be 2 points. Formatting is clear. Nearly all parts are completed. There might be some minor errors. Formatting and presentation is well done. All parts are completed. Very minor errors, if any. So they're scored on that, and then they're scaled. And they're scaled with the stats worth 24 points. So basically I'm multiplying your score by 6. The graph theory worth 20 points, and finance worth 24 points. Then there's part 4 that's being added. That's the presentation. you're supposed to create a presentation which highlights your work on this project. You can do this in Google Slides, PowerPoint, Slides.com, Prezi. You can screencast over the presentation. I do that on Screencast-O-Matic. It's pretty easy. I'm going to get rid of this. It's not required. This is required, I guess, but it's only worth 2 points. It makes it a little easier for me to grade your presentation, and I like it if you do these, but it's only worth 2 points. So if you don't want to do it, that just means you might get a 98 instead of a 100, right? It's not that big a deal. But that's it. You can also, if you don't want to screencast, you could record yourself with your phone or have somebody else do it for you. The presentation is not you just talking about every little part of the project. Instead, it should be a summary, touches on all parts of the project, but again, not explaining everyone in detail. Highlight some of the important statistics, explain your most interesting graphs, explain which roller coasters really stand out, talk about your budget, how you calculated it, how you picked the trip that you went on, include some pictures and data for your parks and roller coasters. You don't have to highlight every roller coaster, but pictures and videos of some of the coolest ones would be a great addition. A good presentation is 10 to 15 minutes long if you do it verbally. That's about 10 slides of substantive material. That doesn't include slides that are just pictures and things. 4 points for that. It's visually interesting, so that's where the photos and videos are going to come in. I don't need a lot of like spinning and flashing words or anything like that, but it should look nice and have photos and videos and maybe some tables or something like that. It's informative, so this is not just, hey, we're going on a trip, look at these fun places, but there's math and stats and numbers and things like that. It will highlight the work that you did on the project, so if somebody sees this presentation, they ought to be able to tell, hey, this is something they did in a math class, look at the work they did to figure out the costs of this trip, and look at the work that they did to find the route for the trip, things like that. And then the verbal video or presentation with screencasting is 2 points. And then the last part of the project, which comes after that, is a class and project reflection. There's just 2 points per question to answer these 5 questions. So that fills out the 100 points if you add all that up. There are instructions on how to upload each of these. So you need to upload all these again in the final project turn-in. You need to upload a copy of your spreadsheet for the stats part. Whatever you did for the graph theory part, which might be a document spreadsheet with your itinerary, plus photos. If you did the best edge and nearest neighbor by hand, or maybe you did those online, re-upload that stuff. Put it all in one place for me, final version, so I know I'm grading the right thing. I don't want to dig back into old discussions and try to find files again, especially if they're not the newest versions of what you've been doing. The finance part, spreadsheet or a document for the budget, and then you may have some other work where you've figured out about saving for the trip, so you might need to upload that as well. That could be on paper, but you could probably type it up for me on that same spreadsheet or document. And then the presentation. So I'm thinking you'll probably be uploading 4 separate files, plus a file to answer these projection and reflection questions. So that needs to go in here, or you could type it in the forum for the final project. Okay, so that is the final project turn-in. That's due May the 11th. Okay, so back home, again, modeling homework, modeling exam, modeling mini project, final project turn-in. That is the stuff that you have to do in the remainder of the class. You got a ton of time to get this stuff done. Let me click one more time. I've updated the project instructions. Just so if you're going back over these, I encourage you to read and make sure you did all the parts. I added in here the stuff from the final project turn-in about how much each part is worth and the rubric. And then I separated out with some red here. Part 1 refers to the stats part. You can read all the steps there. Part 2 is the graph theory part. There's the steps there. Part 3 is our finance part. You can see the steps there. That's week 8, 9, and 10. Part 4 is the presentation. I put the instructions for that. And part 5 is the class project reflection. So everything is in there with instructions on what you need to do. So that file is also available. And to make it easy for you, that's a link right inside the final project turn-in. Okay. So, there may be one more discussion or something that comes later, but for the most part, you have everything that you're going to need. There's also a place inside of here for week 12 where you can post questions about the modeling homework, if anybody has any of those. One other comment that I have, we had the finance test. If you would look at your finance test and go into review and see if any of your answers were just a couple decimal places off. I had one person email me about that, and we were able to get some credit back on some problems. So I'll leave that to you guys. If you go into the MyMathLab gradebook and click review by your test, you should be able to look that over and figure out if maybe I could get you some points back. I did move those grades over. Some of them were really good and some of them were not. But the finance test is usually the hardest one in the class. And some of you, that wasn't true, but for some of you it was. But anyway, I think that is it for this update. And this may be the last one of these video updates. I'm not sure. If you need to talk to me about your project, I've got some of those one-on-one meetings coming up. I've been sending people invitations to meet in video conferencing. I've done that with a couple people, and I think it's been pretty helpful. But just email me if you need to set up some time to talk about your project or anything else. So, all right, have fun.